Welcome to Mr. Brown's Basement, a channel devoted to sharing the craft of repairing, restoring, and modifying vintage electronic gear, and other random stuff. In the last video, I detailed how I took my west attic room from an unfinished garret to the beginning of a useful and sophisticated space. If you didn't have a chance to watch that video, you may want to do that now. This video picks up where the last left off. Since the last video, I added this molding here, which makes the transition from the wall to the ceiling much more even. That's PVC quarter round, and then I added silicone sealant to fill the gaps that otherwise would spoil the appearance. I did it at the other end as well, but you really can't see because the curtain rod is in the way. Next was the matter of the driver that came with the LED tape. This is it. Now, according to the instructions, it is dimmable, but if it is dimmable, it is the worst dimmable transformer I've ever seen. So, misleading or crap, one or the other. So what I've done is I bought a different kind of driver, and I'll put a link to it in the description, and we'll see how that works. This is the dimmer I'm using. It's a Leviton Decor Smart. It works with my Apple HomeKit accessories. Let's try it right now. Now that's good dimming. Well, you can't see it as well because my camera's light meter is compensating, but it's the way it should be. This is the floor material. You really can't see the color even though this is daylight. They call this butterscotch, but I wouldn't call it butterscotch. Well, from the camera's perspective, it looks like washed out something. It's actually much warmer than this. 3 1/4 inches wide by 3/4 of an inch thick. And it's red oak. I'm just waiting for it to acclimate before putting it down. I'm about to start the hardwood. I've got a chalk line down, and not too surprising, about 1/2 inch away over there, but about 1/4 of an inch over there. But it's all good. It's not going to expand that much that way. It might expand more at the ends. So it'll be concealed by 1/4 round. As lovely as the subfloor is, this is now the beginning of the end of it. I'm going to start the hardwood, and hopefully this underlay will never be seen again. The first boards that are laid are face nailed and blind nailed. That is, nails go in this tongue, and they're hidden by the groove in the next set of boards. Those holes are covered with wood putty or filler so that they become invisible. And then the very last boards that are put down are face nailed as well, and then there's some sort of seam binder or threshold to finish it off. And finally, at the end, I'm going to put a 1/4 round or cove into the gap. You have to leave an expansion gap. Here's an example of blind nailing. A 1.5 inch nail, a spiral finishing nail, is put in there, and then the head is sunk using a nail set. One of these. It is time consuming and back breaking. I suppose there's a better way to do it, and that's with a nailing gun or pneumatic nailer. I don't have one, so I do it, I guess you'd call it the old-fashioned way. There's the first mile. Wait, no, it's only the first foot. I think this is enough for an afternoon. I'll resume tomorrow. The bookcase is a little bit off, so there will be a funny shaped piece in here. Here I am, almost finished. I've got a few more boards to cut. Now, I've got wax paper down on the floor. I don't know exactly why it's done, but I've read that you're supposed to, so I do it. And I've got a row which will have to be cut because it's not going to fit unless it's cut back a little bit. And then finally, this is the original floor here. I'll put in a seam binder. We'll make it safe to walk through because it will be something that you won't trip over. But also this hardwood is only 5/16, while this hardwood is 3/4. The quarter round has now been mitered all the way around and back again right to the seam binder, and next it has to be stained and installed. Installation won't take long, but staining maybe a little bit longer. There are about a dozen pieces that need to be stained, and I'll be doing it with this stuff, Minwax Poly Shades Pecan Gloss. Here we are after just one coat of Minwax. It will take probably 6 to 8 hours for it to be dry enough to recoat, and then it'll get a second coat, which should be enough. All the molding is down. That's the quarter round and the seam binder. And now it's time to deal with the wire management, which is the installation of this paintable plastic tubing into which the wires will go and be more concealed. So I'm going to attach this to the woodwork with number 8 pan head screws and then run the wires through it and then paint it. That's the end view, so there is plenty of room for power and speakers. I bought a stereo cabinet. It's made out of oak. I don't believe it's veneer, at least most of it's not veneer. Whoever had owned it before had left water on the top and didn't look very good because it damaged the oak. I applied Minwax with a cloth and it looks really nice. What I also have to do is replace the pulls on it because the pulls are quite ugly. Here are the pulls. I don't care for them at all. I don't know what era they're trying to be, but I guess it would be the ugly era. I don't care for them at all. I've ordered some new pulls from a local company called Livable. I'll leave the catalog numbers in the description below. While I'm waiting for the paint to dry on the wire management over there, I think I'm going to change the pulls on the stereo cabinet. I think they're early Canadian ugly, but you may disagree. I'm replacing them with something less ugly, I think less ugly. We'll see how they look. There we have it with the new hardware on and the old hardware, which doesn't match at all, off, thankfully. I also picked up this desk. It's a reproduction made out of particle board and veneer. If I decide to modify it, I won't feel as bad about it because it's veneer over particle board. It wasn't in bad shape, but some of the veneer was damaged, so I used these magic markers fixed the boo-boos of the past. All furniture that goes on hardwood gets glides, and they're all different kinds of glides. These glides work quite nicely. They're surprisingly expensive, like 8 pieces for $11, but they work well. Just like with the stereo cabinet, this piece of furniture is having an identity crisis, not really knowing when it wants to be. That hardware is not appropriate for something of this age, though it's not that old, it's a reproduction. So they're going to be replaced. Those handles are going to get replaced, and these pulls as well. I'm hoping to use these Electrohome omnidirectional speakers as my rear speakers for the sound system in this room. They either sit on something, or they're mounted on something, or they're hung from something. I'm going to be using these speakers in this room. I don't want them to sound boomy, so I use these concave bumpers. They're for doorknobs so they don't damage the wall, but they're made out of silicone, and they're perfect for reducing vibration on speakers. They're self-adhesive on the bottom. Here's the stereo cabinet with the requisite vintage components and television. It's an unspoken rule, or maybe a spoken rule, of Mr. Brown's basement that every room should have at least one radio and a TV, all vintage. Now that the wire channel's in, it makes the wiring almost invisible. And certainly when the desk is in, you won't see the wire at all, which is what I want. The trick, of course, is to paint it the same color, and that it is. I've put in the curtains. They really do block out the sun. It's quite incredible. They're actually like a deep honey color, but it's not showing that way. I had an old chair that I've had maybe for 40 years, maybe longer, and it had completely failed. So I had a company called Bespoke Original redo the leather. You can't really see, it's brown. It's like a caramel brown. Had them fix the seat, left the back alone. It looks really nice. And nice on the bottom too. One final before and after. I think it's time to wind up this video because the room is more or less finished. Stereo and stereo cabinet, desk, rear speakers, curtains and blinds, the ceiling, which I'm crazy about, the floor, which I'm also crazy about. Overall, I'm very happy with this project. Now, any room, you have to let it grow on you before you can determine what works and what doesn't work. I'm expecting to do one more thing, and that is get an old radio console to put it here for two reasons. First of all, I like old radio consoles, and second, when you walk into this room, there is the matter of the roof right there. Ceiling on this side, roof on the other, so it can't be moved. And I don't want people walking into it. So if I put something right over there, it'll be harder to walk into it. And let me tell you, I've walked into it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed these two videos, part 1 and part 2. And if you did, please consider a thumbs up for me and subscribing to my channel. Here's a postscript. The console arrived. I've had a chance to clean it up and take out the chassis. I haven't done any repair on it yet. Needs TLC to make it presentable. I like it. And it will prevent people, especially me, from walking in and hitting the ceiling because it directs traffic away from the doorway, and I like that. That's it, really. That's it, no more. Please watch my upcoming video on a circa 1949 RCA 9W125 radio, AM/FM, 2 shortwave bands, and 2 record players.